For centuries, emperors ruled China with absolute power, surrounded by vast harem of women chosen for beauty and political alliances. But in the 7th century, one woman changed everything. Wu Zetian didn't just take the throne, she built a harem of her own. Filled with young, handsome men, her court became the most scandalous in Chinese history. Hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into the fascinating and controversial world of Wu Zetian's male harem, who they were, how they gained power, and what happened when Wu Zetian's favor turned against them. Wu Zetian's rise to power wasn't just rare, it was unprecedented. She was born in 624 AD during the Tang Dynasty, a time of wealth, expansion, and strict social hierarchies. At 14 years old, she entered imperial palace as a concubine of Emperor Taizong, the second emperor of the dynasty. Most concubines spend their lives in the background, rarely seeing the emperor. But Wu Zetian was different. She was highly educated, which was unusual for women at the time. She studied history, literature, and politics, not just for personal interest, but because she understood that knowledge was power. She observed the court, learned how influence shifted, and positioned herself as more than just another palace woman. But in 649 AD, Taizong died, and that should have been the end of her story. By imperial custom, a deceased emperor's concubine were sent to a Buddhist convent, forced into a life of isolation. That was the rule. Yet somehow, Wu Zetian returned. She re-entered the palace, not as a forgotten concubine, but as a consort to the new emperor, Gaozong, Taizong's son. This was highly unusual. Once back in the palace, she leveraged her position to get rid of her political rivals. The empress was removed. High-ranking concubines were cast aside. One by one, she eliminated anyone who stood between her and power. Over time, she became Gaozong's most trusted advisor, and as his health declined, she ruled alongside him, issuing imperial decrees in her own name. Then, in 690 AD, she took the final step, declaring herself Emperor of China and officially found her own Zhou dynasty, a short-lived break from the Tang dynasty that existed only during her reign. Unlike the ancient Zhou dynasty that had ruled over 1,000 years earlier, Wu Zetian's Zhou was a dynasty built entirely around her rule. This wasn't just a symbolic title. Wu Zetian ruled with absolute authority. She expanded the government, placed officials in power based on merit rather than birth, and personally oversaw every major decision. But while Wu Zetian restructured the empire, she also redefined palace traditions. And nowhere was this more controversial than in her personal relationships. Among the many ways she defied imperial norms, one stood out above the rest. She became the first ruler in Chinese history to establish a formalized harem of men, challenging centuries of tradition. Wu Zetian's establishment of a male harem shook the imperial court, but harems themselves were nothing new. For centuries, Chinese emperors kept vast harems, not just for pleasure, but for power. A woman's status depended on the emperor's favor and her ability to bear male heirs, turning the harem into a battleground for influence. But Wu Zetian flipped the system on its head. Her harem wasn't filled with elite women vying for power. It was made up of men, and unlike traditional concubines, they weren't just ornamental companions. Some were appointed to government positions. Others became trusted informants, and a few served far more personal roles. Wu Zetian's male harem has long been a subject of speculation. Some later sources claim she openly questioned traditional gender norms, allegedly saying, "For generations, male rulers have had vast palaces full of wives and concubines, so why should a woman be expected to devote herself to just one man?" While there is no direct historical record of her saying this, it reflects the way her rule challenged expectations of a female emperor. Her selection of consorts is also shrouded in myth. Some accounts even suggest that Princess Taiping, Wu Zetian's daughter played a role in selecting men for her mother. Other rumors claim that officials and bureaucrats sought favor by offering their own sons or even volunteering themselves, hoping for political advantage. Wu Zetian's trusted aide, Shangguan Wan'er, is also said to have been involved in this process, traveling the empire in search of suitable candidates. According to some later sources, Wu Zetian set clear standards. She wanted men who were youthful, captivating, and in peak of physical condition. At the height of her reign, rumors circulated that Wu Zetian kept 3,000 male consorts. While this was almost certainly an exaggeration, it highlights how her harem became a focus of scandal and political attacks in later dynasties. In 699 AD, Wu Zetian formalized the roles of her male consorts within the imperial system by creating the Konghe Jian. Some historians described it as the male equivalent of a traditional harem, an institution where favored men held official positions. Officially, the Konghe Jian oversaw palace affairs, ceremonial duties, and literary work, but many of its appointees weren't just scholars or administrators. They were men favored by Wu Zetian. Some accounts suggest that Wu Zetian deliberately structured the Konghe Jian to give her male companions an official place in palace hierarchy, similar to how imperial concubines had been positioned under male rulers. This shift deeply unsettled traditional officials, who saw the rise of male consorts as a direct challenge to imperial norms. With the Konghe Jian in place, Wu Zetian's harem was no longer just an open secret. It was part of the palace system. Instead of noble women competing for power, Wu Zetian's harem was made up of men who held influence in different ways, some through their intellect, others through their charm, and a few simply through the emperor's favor. Let's take a look at the most notable members of Wu Zetian's male harems, starting with the first man to ever gain her favor. Feng Xiaobao wasn't born into nobility. He was a commoner from Hu County, in modern-day Xi'an, Shanxi. By chance, he caught the attention of Princess Qianjing, the daughter of Emperor Gaozu, who saw potential in him. Some sources suggest that palace maids or other intermediaries first introduced him to Princess Qianjing, who then presented him to Wu Zetian. From that moment, his life changed forever. To allow Feng Xiaobao move freely in and out of the palace, Wu Zetian ordained him as a Buddhist monk, giving him the name Xue Huaiyi. But make no mistake, he wasn't just a monk. He quickly became one of Wu Zetian's closest companions, spending time with her day and night. She showered him with titles and privileges, allowing him to ride imperial horses, command palace attendants, and wield influence over powerful officials. But Xue Huaiyi's power extended beyond the palace. Wu Zetian entrusted him with overseeing major imperial projects, including the construction of the Bride Hall, a massive ceremonial hall symbolizing her supreme authority. She even granted him military titles such as Duke of Liang and later Duke of E, and appointed him as a general in military campaigns. But power breeds arrogance. As Xue Huaiyi's influence grew, so did his recklessness. He openly insulted officials, clashed with Taoism monks. His unchecked behavior strained his relationship with Wu Zetian, and his position became increasingly unstable. In 694 AD, his downfall came suddenly and brutally. After a heated argument with Wu Zetian, Xue Huaiyi set fire to the Bride Hall. This reckless act sealed his fate. Shortly afterward, he was ambushed and killed, likely at Wu Zetian's orders or orchestrated by her allies who saw him as a threat. His body was cremated at White Horse Temple, and his name was erased from palace records. Shen Nanqiu wasn't a warrior, a politician, or a strategist. He wasn't in court to gain power, command armies, or influence policies. Instead, he was there for something far rarer: companionship. His introduction to Wu Zetian was no accident. Some sources suggest that Princess Taiping, Wu Zetian's daughter, played a key role in bringing him into the palace. Some records described Shen Nanqiu as a skilled imperial physician, while others emphasize his talent as a musician. He was said to be a master of the guqin, a traditional Chinese stringed instrument, captivating even the most hardened officials with his performances. He also had a talent for poetry, crafting verses that resonated with Wu Zetian's literary appreciation. Unlike others in imperial court who used flattery and maneuvering to maintain favor, Shen Nanqiu simply played music, shared poetry, and talked. His time with Wu Zetian was free from political ambition, making him stand apart from the rest of her inner circle. His fate remains unclear, with conflicting historical accounts. One account claims that he accidentally poisoned himself, miscalculating the dosage of the medicinal tonics he regularly took as an imperial physician. Regardless of how he died, one thing is clear. Unlike the other men in Wu Zetian's harem, Shen Nanqiu was not remembered for power or ambition, but for the rarest thing in the imperial court, genuine companionship. Of all the men in Wu Zetian's harem, none were more powerful or more hated than the Zhang brothers. Zhang Yizhi and Zhang Cangzong weren't just imperial favorites, they were the gatekeepers of power. Unlike other consorts who quietly enjoyed their favor, the Zhang brothers took control of court politics, making enemies in the process. The rise began around 697 AD when they caught Wu Zetian's eye. Some sources say it was Princess Taiping who introduced them, knowing her mother preferred younger, charming attendants. Their handsome features, delicate manners, and unwavering loyalty quickly won them a place in the emperor's inner circle. But they weren't just companions, they were rulers in all but name. In 699 AD, Wu Zetian put Zhang Yizhi in charge of the Konghejian, effectively making him the head of her harem and one of the most powerful figures in court. His brother, Zhang Cangzong, was given military and diplomatic responsibilities, even though he had no real experience. To traditional officials, this was outrageous. For decades, they had tolerated Wu Zetian's rule, but now two young, unqualified men were deciding imperial policy. Worse yet, they controlled access to the emperor, meaning no one could influence Wu Zetian without going through them first. The court had seen powerful concubines before, but never male consorts who held this much influence. Their privileged status didn't just threaten the aristocracy, it made them dangerous targets. For years, the Zhang brothers wielded more power than generals, nobles, and ministers combined. Their control over the Konghejian and imperial access made them the most influential men in China. But in the end, it also sealed their fate. Some saw them as ruthless manipulators, while others viewed them as convenient scapegoats for the fall of China's only female emperor. Either way, their story remains inseparable from the legacy of Wu Zetian. By the early 700s AD, Wu Zetian's reign was nearing its end. She was in her 80s and her health was failing. For decades, she had ruled with absolute authority, eliminating threats and reshaping the imperial court to her will. But in 705 AD, her enemies saw their opportunity. A coup led by senior officials and military commanders was launched to restore the Tang dynasty. They stormed the palace, removed her closest allies, and forced Wu Zetian to abdicate. Among the first to fall were the Zhang brothers, who were seized and executed, their bodies publicly displayed as a warning. With her dynasty at an end, Wu Zetian stepped down, and the Tang reclaimed power. She was sent into exile and died soon after. Yet, even after her reign ended, her legacy was just beginning to be rewritten. After Wu Zetian's death, later historians greatly exaggerated the scale of her harem. Some claimed she had thousands of lovers, constantly cycling through new men. Others suggested she chose partners based solely on their appearances, discarding those who failed to satisfy her. These accounts were written long after her reign ended, often by scholars who opposed her rule and wanted to portray her as a ruler driven by personal desire rather than political ambition. But historical records tell a different story. Her harem wasn't just about companionship, it was a political tool, securing loyalty, controlling palace factions, and maintaining authority. Like any emperor, she surrounded herself with people she could trust. But because those people were her male consorts, later historians reframed her story as one of scandal rather than governance. In the years that followed, Confucian scholars worked to reshape her legacy, ensuring that her harem became the defining story of her reign. Even today, Wu Zetian is often remembered not just as China's only female emperor, but as the ruler with a harem of men, one of the most debated aspects of her legacy. Wu Zetian's harem was more than just a palace intrigue. It reflected the shifting power dynamics of her reign. While male emperors surrounded themselves with concubines for centuries, a female emperor doing the same was seen as a threat. History may judge her differently, but her legacy continues to captivate us. What do you think? Do you see her as a wise and capable ruler or a ruthless tyrant? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on another palace life story. I'll see you in the next video.
Stay curious, stay magical.